What is going on, guys? TheBrokenMachine here. Hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to the best settings guide for Modern Warfare 2. Call of Duty is here. Sit back, relax, turn on your consoles, turn on your PCs. Let's get into this, shall we? Set your aiming input device to controller or mouse here. On the edit button layout, I would recommend tactical. The right analog can now be used for crouching, diving, and sliding, much better in gunfights and for general movement around the map. Circle or B on Xbox will now be your melee button. Highly recommend it, you'll become a much better player. Flip the triggers and the ADS here. Definitely recommend this one. You'll be aiming much faster and reacting to your targets much quicker. Various stick layout presets here. Only for advanced users this one. Default is going to be fine for the majority of players. Definitely recommend you turn off controller vibration and the trigger effects here. Most players don't really need vibration. It does affect your aim. So personally, I would recommend you turn it off. When it comes to sensitivities, there is lots of personal preferences here. You'll find many pro players and YouTubers and streamers use various sensitivities. I would recommend somewhere between 3 and 7 for most players. Personally, I use 10. That works quite well for me. It's somewhat similar to 100 sensitivity in Battlefield. Do recommend somewhere between 3 and 7. You'll be fine. ADS sensitivity multiplier is your sensitivity while aiming down sights. If you leave this on 1, it will be the same as your hipfire sensitivity, so both of these will be exactly the same in terms of feeling. If you want faster ADS, most people would go for double, so set this to 2. There is some additional sensitivity multiplier options here. Again, I would recommend default, but if you like super fast sensitivity in the vehicles, because you don't really need to be super accurate, you could bump these numbers up here. Do you play inverted or not? Well, you can set your options here. I am an inverted player. Do not go changing it just because I use it. It's again personal preference. If you've always played on inverted, set it to inverted. These options down the bottom here are mostly personal preference. Definitely recommend you leave aim down sight on hold. Some players like to toggle it. Personally, never really got on with that. I would recommend having automatic tactical sprint here set to this. That works for me. Over to the advanced tab here, definitely recommend you leave aim assist on. Turning this off will put you at a disadvantage, especially in Warzone. There are various different aim assist types here. Honestly, default is going to be fine for the majority of players. Descriptions are on the right if you want to have a look at those, but honestly, default is just fine. When it comes to the aim response curve type, I would definitely recommend linear. Aim stick will map directly to aim rate, so pretty much this is gonna feel 1-to-1. Now, in Modern Warfare 2, this feels great. Didn't feel so great in Warzone, but it feels good in this game, and it will feel good in Warzone too. A lot of players do use dynamic, but at this point, I would definitely recommend you try linear. Of course, if you've always used dynamic, you might want to stick with it, but after about a week or so, linear feels great to me, and as a Battlefield player, it feels just very similar, very similar. ADS aim assist is just for single player. You may as well just leave this on. Now, this additional ADS sense multiplier option here, this is when you're holding your breath. Now, if you want a really low sensitivity, while doing that, you can set this all the way to the bottom. Most people are going to be fine with leaving this on default. I would recommend changing the ADS sensitivity transition timing to instant, so that's when you aim down sight, you're instantly in that ADS sensitivity. Some people might want to go gradual or wait for the after zoom. Personally, I like that 1-to-1 feeling, so instant is the way to go. Now, for the custom sensitivity per zoom, if you leave this off, all sights are going to feel the same in terms of sensitivity, which is what I would highly recommend. Aim down sight with a pistol 90 degrees and then did the same with a sniper rifle, all the way zoomed in, both would feel the same in terms of sensitivity. Highly recommend you leave this on default. Now for the dead zones, drop this down to somewhere between 0.03 and the default values. You should be fine with 0.03. If you've got a really old destroyed controller, you may notice some stick drift. That's where your aim is kind of moving all around the screen, so you might want to bump this up a bit, but 0.03 really works well for me. I would leave both of these options here on default though. Messing with these might really affect your aim. Again, I could say personal preference here, but default is just fine. Trust me, leave it alone. Now, these two bottom options here are for aiming and firing your weapon. You want these all the way to the bottom, the lowest value, so that as soon as you press the button, you're either aiming in or firing your weapon. Now for the movement behaviors here, most of these again are personal preference. It's up to you. Do you want to move freely in the water or have to look a certain way? You want the automatic ground mantle. Honestly, no, turn that off. Again, personal preference. Copying these options here, you'll be totally fine. Now for the combat behaviors, recommend turning off ADS stick swap, turning off the backpack alternate controls, leaving on weapon mount movement exit. So if you're holding the movement input for the weapon mount, exit delay disengages weapon mount. Weapon mount exit delay, I would leave this on medium. Depleted ammo weapon switch, set this to on. If you set this off, you must manually switch weapons when ammo is depleted. Most players, when they run out of ammo, they're going to switch to this other weapon, so you may as well leave this on. Quick C4 detonation, I leave this off. It's up to you. If you set this to on, you can press the lethal equipment button and it will detonate any C4 before throwing another. Vehicle behaviors here, short delay and free look is what I would recommend. Scoreboard minimap behavior, I would recommend setting this to hold. I think it's much quicker. If you get stuck in a gunfight, you can just let go of the button. Set the ping wheel delay to moderate and the double tap danger ping delay to moderate as well. As for the graphics, I would set on-demand texture streaming to on. Set this down to small and you'll be fine. Enable download limits if you really struggle with your connection, but you should be fine with that. Turn off motion blur, weapon motion blur, film grain all the way down to the bottom, and also depth of field off as well. Now this fidelity FXCAS option here, set this on and put the strength up all the way to 100 and you'll have a nice sharp image on your screen. If you do have a 120Hz monitor for console, set this to on. Your FOV is the amount of the world you can see in front of you. I use 120, that feels good to me. 90 is a good setting to begin with. Basically, if you have this too low, targets are much bigger, much easier to aim and track, but you lose that peripheral vision. If you set this all the way to high, to see all the way around you, but targets do become smaller and can be difficult to track and aim at. So do keep that in mind. Most people, 90 will do them good. I would not recommend going any lower. I'd recommend setting the ADS field of view to affected. The recoil will appear less, it's still there, but visually it appears less, and personally I find I control weapons and track targets much better with this on affected. Set your weapon field of view down to narrow. It will take up less space on the screen, and I do believe on console you get a little bit more frames. As for the first person and third person camera movements, set these to the least. This adjusts the intensity of the camera shake while moving around in first and third person. Obviously, you do not want that to be shaking all around. It's going to affect your aim. Brightness settings here, personally default is just fine. You might want to bump it up to maybe 60%. Set your audio to home theater, that should be fine. Otherwise, headphone bass boost is a good default option. Leave your master volume on 100. I personally turn the music completely off. I get a bit sweaty at times. I don't want that distracting me. Dialogue volume somewhere between 10 and 30. It's got to be fine. Effects, leave that on 100 and leave the hit marker volume on 100 as well. Mono audio, majority of people don't need to turn this on. Some subtitle options here if you voice chat, headset or speakers, depends on what you want. You can do a microphone test here if you need to. And I would recommend setting the auto connect at match start to lobby off if you don't want to deal with anyone chatting down the mic. And make sure mute yourself when connecting is on, just in case you give away your passwords or whatever you ate for tea last night. Juggernaut music, I'm just going to leave that on. Don't really care too much about that. If you really wanted it off for multiplayer, go ahead, but you're not going to see many Juggernauts, so you may as well leave it on. Hit marker sound effects, you can set this to none, classic or modern warfare. Leave it on modern warfare if I was you. And you can reduce the tinnitus sound, tinnitus, I get it wrong every time. You know what I mean, if you want to turn that on there as well. Now onto the interface, I just leave most of this on default. Definitely recommend you leave the text chat background opacity to default 20 or lower so you don't see it taking up all of the screen. You can center the dot here if you have any motion sickness issues, so this adds a static dot in the middle of the screen. Again, more subtitle options here if you need. You can change up the HUD if you wish, if you want to take away certain elements, add certain elements. Player names, you can have the full name, abbreviated, or the icon only. On the right side, you can see there, I prefer just to have the full name. You know, if you see one of them, it's going to help you out. Various options here if you want to check it out. You can set the server latency, packet loss, and clock icons here if you need to. If you're having problems, You want to get people to help you out, set these to on, and they can see if it's your connection that's affecting you. On the bottom there, you can turn the tooltips off if you wish. Counter network, make sure you've got crossplay on so you can actually play with other people on different platforms. Crossplay communication, leave it on if you want that. Make sure you don't click network info while you're streaming. Text chat, profanity filter, all of these things are personal preference. Change if you wish. If you're on PlayStation, make sure you go to save data and game app settings. Make sure the game preset is set to performance mode. Also over here on screen and video, make sure the video output is set to 1440p if your monitor can handle it. And of course, the 120 Hz output is on automatic. I'm sure Xbox has similar options you can test out. Xbox also has similar options you need to enable. Now onto the PC settings, do be sure to make sure you right click your desktop, click display settings, make sure on the advanced display settings here, your monitor is on the highest refresh rate. Currently mine isn't as I'm recording a video and this is the second monitor, but do be sure, a lot of people make this mistake and have left it on default values. Also, if you've got an NVIDIA graphics card, make sure you right click your desktop, click NVIDIA control panel, manage 3D settings, and copy these settings here. All of these should be good for your setup. You'll be fine. Copy these. I could explain all of them, but honestly, you'll be fine. Just do it. Trust me. Also on the adjust desktop color settings here, make sure you turn this up to 70% on the digital vibrance. Colors will look nice and they'll pop and you'll see players in bushes a little bit more easily. When it comes to the mouse and keyboard settings here, I would recommend using this website on screen right now to convert your sensitivity from other games to this one. If you used 8 sensitivity in Modern Warfare 2019, use 8 in this one as well. Most of these options are similar to what I described earlier in the controller settings. Make sure you've watched that bit, it goes over all of these perfectly. Now this monitor distance coefficient here, I would leave this on default. Lots of debate over what's the best value here. Honestly, default should work for most people. Similar to the controller settings here, custom sensitivity per zoom, leave that so your mouse sensitivity feels the same across all sites. You also have the additional keybinds tab here if you want to change your keybinds. Personally, I use these on default. Of course, on PC, we have the additional graphics options. Definitely recommend you set this to full screen. I'm recording the video right now, so it's just on borderless. Set your monitor here, set your GPU here, it should all be fine and set up for you. Dynamic resolution, turn that off. Automatic on the aspect ratio, turn off VSync in the gameplay and menus. That is vertical sync. If you have these options on, there will be some input lag and your aim won't feel one-to-one and responsive all the time. Set the custom frame limit to custom, max it out here for the gameplay, and then drop it down to maybe 120 or less for the menu and out of focus. Display gamma, leave this on 2.2. If you've got a fancy monitor or TV, you might want to try 2.4. HDR, if you've got a HDR monitor, turn this on. Personally, I don't, so I leave that on automatic or off. As for the quality settings here, render resolution, set this to 100. If you're having FPS issues, you might want to drop it down just a little bit. Set the fidelity FXCAS on here, just like console. Turn that on, click show more, and set that to 100 to get a really nice sharp image. If you got a beefy rig, you might not even need this on. Anti-aliasing, set this to SMAA-T2X. High there, video memory scale, 85 should be fine. Maybe drop it to about 6.5 if you're having issues. 85 should be good though. Texture resolution, set that to normal. This one to normal. Nearby level of detail on high should be fine. Distant level of detail to low. Clutter draw distance, you want that on short, so small ground elements don't show up at longer ranges. Particle quality, set that to low. Quality level low as well. Bullet impacts and sprays, leave this on, and set the shader quality to medium. Tessellation, this is the amount of sum of the scene geometry, which receives subdivision for improved rendering quality. Your game will look a little prettier with this on, but for most people, turn this off. Terrain memory, just leave that on minimum, that should be fine. On-demand texture streaming, if you're having issues with FPS and stuff, turn this off, but you should be fine. I would set this to on, and you should be good. Set the streaming quality to low though, and the volumetric quality to high. This is the lighting. You could lower it if you wish, but I kind of like the game to look nice and pretty. Once I've done some more testing in the game, I'll probably drop this to medium, but high seems to be fine for now. Water options here, I would just leave this on. This is the way the light rays and waves that light produces at the bottom of the sea shows up on your screen or whatever, but you may as well just leave this on, it's fine. Shadow map resolution, set this to normal. Screen space shadows on low should be fine. Spot shadow quality to low as well. Cache spot shadows, I've got this off right now. There was some issues with FPS in the beta, I believe, but you may want to try this on, but it should be fine with it off. Spot cache, I just left that on high. Off with this one. Particle lighting on normal. Ambient occlusion, turning this on will have a really nice, pretty game, but definitely takes away some of the FPS, so turn it off and the game looks fine anyway. Screen space reflections, set this to normal. Weather grid volumes, I've just left this on, and I'm going to drop this down to normal on the quality there. Should be good. Now, NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency. If you're using a controller on PC, you'll definitely notice a difference with this on or on plus boost. I've always had it on plus boost. That feels the best, but it does seem that you might lose some frames on boost in some scenarios, so have a play of on and boost, but you should be fine with either. Now, all of these options here, turn them off, you don't need them, and set the film grain to 0. We talked about these options earlier on console, but do make sure this is on 50 and 50 as well for the first and third person camera movements. You don't want that affecting your aim. And that is all of the options. Do be sure to drop any questions down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed this and found it helpful, a dislike if you didn't, and do be sure to subscribe. A lot of people don't know I do stream here on YouTube. Plenty of games of multiplayer, Warzone, Battlefield as well, most days of the week. Do be sure to subscribe. Hope to see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.